The world watches with bated breath. The threat of nuclear war, once relegated to history books, has returned to the forefront of global consciousness. Military doctrines now flirt with the unthinkable, the possibility of limited nuclear war. This dangerous shift, coupled with advancing technology, has brought the world closer to the brink than in decades. In a world grappling with climate change, pandemics, and economic uncertainty, nuclear war represents the ultimate existential threat. The future of our species hangs precariously in the balance. The world has become a complex chessboard, where nuclear-armed states vie for strategic advantage. From Ukraine to the Taiwan Strait, volatile hotspots could ignite a global conflagration. Old alliances are fraying, new ones are forming, and the rules of engagement are constantly evolving. The nuclear chessboard demands vigilance, strategic foresight, and a commitment to dialogue and de-escalation. The fate of humanity rests on navigating this perilous landscape. The icy plains of Eastern Europe remind us of the fragility of peace. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has shattered the post-Cold War order, risking nuclear confrontation. The West's response, tempered by fear of wider conflict, has been a mix of condemnation, sanctions, and military aid. The threat of nuclear escalation is now a chilling reality. The world watches, hoping cooler heads will prevail. Across the Pacific, another flashpoint simmers with nuclear conflict potential. China's assertiveness over Taiwan has raised alarm bells in Washington. The Taiwan Strait has become a focal point of military activity, with both sides in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. The risk of miscalculation threatens to spiral into a conflict involving the United States and its allies. A war between the US and China would have devastating global repercussions. North Korea has emerged as a rogue nuclear state under Kim Jong-un. Driven by a siege mentality, Pyongyang believes its nuclear arsenal is the ultimate deterrent. International sanctions have failed to deter North Korea's nuclear ambitions. The Korean peninsula remains a powder keg, a legacy of the Cold War. The stakes are high, with potential consequences threatening regional and global stability. In South Asia, nuclear-armed neighbors India and Pakistan eye each other with deep mistrust. The contested territory of Kashmir remains a constant flashpoint. Militants and historical grievances add complexity to the volatile situation. The risk of a small-scale clash escalating into a nuclear conflict is ever present. Efforts to promote dialogue have met with limited success, hampered by deep-seated mistrust. In the Middle East, Iran's nuclear program has the potential to reshape the region. Tehran insists its ambitions are peaceful, but skepticism remains. The 2015 nuclear deal offered hope, but its collapse has plunged the region back into uncertainty. Iran's gradual withdrawal from the deal raises concerns of nuclear weapons capability. The possibility of military confrontation looms large, threatening wider regional conflict. The proliferation of nuclear weapons remains a pressing threat to global security. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT, has limited the spread of nuclear weapons. However, challenges from non-signatory states and violators persist. Strengthening the NPT requires diplomatic effort, political will, and addressing underlying security concerns. Innovative approaches are needed to address new nuclear threats, including cyber warfare and AI. For decades, treaties formed a fragile bulwark against nuclear annihilation. However, these pillars of global security are crumbling. The demise of the INF Treaty and the uncertain future of New START raise concerns about a renewed arms race. The erosion of trust between nuclear-armed states undermines the non-proliferation regime. The international community must work to rebuild these essential instruments of peace. A new arms race is underway, driven by technological advancements. Hypersonic missiles and stealth technology pose significant challenges to existing defenses. AI integration into military systems introduces new risks and ethical questions. These advancements complicate strategic calculations and increase the potential for miscalculation. The pursuit of strategic advantage threatens to destabilize global security. The world stands at a crossroads, haunted by history and confronted by present perils. The specter of nuclear war casts a long shadow over humanity. The proliferation of nuclear weapons and new technologies heightened the risk of catastrophic conflict. The lessons of history remind us of the dangers of unchecked ambition and miscommunication. The pursuit of peace must be relentless, guided by a shared understanding of the stakes. The very act of imagining a nuclear war is an exercise in horror, a descent into the abyss of human folly and the ultimate betrayal of our shared humanity. Yet, to avert this unthinkable fate, we must confront its horrific reality to comprehend the scale of devastation, the utter obliteration of life, and the long-lasting consequences that would haunt generations to come. The moment of detonation would unleash a blinding flash of light and a searing heatwave, vaporizing everything in its immediate vicinity. Buildings would crumble, bridges would collapse, and entire cities would be reduced to smoldering ruins in an instant. The lucky ones, if such a term could ever apply, would perish quickly, spared the agony of what would follow. For those outside the immediate blast radius, a living nightmare would begin. The shockwave would radiate outward with unimaginable force, leveling structures, shattering glass, and flinging debris with deadly velocity. Fires would rage out of control, fueled by the remnants of shattered lives and the toxic fumes of burning chemicals. The air itself would become a weapon, thick with radioactive dust and debris, choking the life out of anything that dared to breathe. The wounded would cry out for help, but their pleas would be drowned out by the howling wind and the crackling flames, a symphony of destruction orchestrated by human hands. In the aftermath of the initial blasts, a silent killer would emerge from the ashes radiation, an invisible enemy that would haunt the survivors. Carried by the wind, it would spread far and wide, an invisible poison contaminating everything it touched, leaving no corner of the earth untouched. The lucky ones, if such a term could still apply, would succumb quickly to radiation sickness, their bodies ravaged from within, sparing them prolonged suffering. Others would face a slow and agonizing death, their organs failing, their hair falling out, their skin covered in lesions, a grim reminder of the invisible threat. The long-term effects of radiation exposure would be felt for generations, altering the course of human history in ways unimaginable. Cancer rates would skyrocket, birth defects would become commonplace, and the genetic legacy of humanity would be forever altered, a dark shadow over the future. The environment itself would be poisoned, the soil contaminated, the water undrinkable, making survival even more challenging. The delicate balance of nature would be disrupted, perhaps irrevocably, leading to the collapse of ecosystems. The living would envy the dead, as the struggle to survive in a poisoned world would be relentless. Survivors would emerge from shelters or makeshift hospitals to find a world transformed, a desolate wasteland stripped of its beauty and its promise, a haunting reminder of what once was. Food and clean water would be scarce, medical supplies non-existent, adding to the desperation of the survivors. The social fabric that once held communities together would be torn apart, replaced by fear, suspicion, and the struggle for survival, a new and harsh reality. The psychological scars of nuclear war would run deep, leaving an indelible mark on the human psyche, a constant reminder of the horrors endured. The trauma of witnessing such unimaginable destruction, the loss of loved ones, the constant fear of radiation poisoning. These experiences would leave an enduring legacy of pain, grief, and a profound sense of loss shaping the future of humanity. From ashes to dust, the collapse of civilization, the aftermath of a nuclear war, would extend far beyond the immediate devastation and the long-term health consequences. The global economy would collapse, trade routes would be severed, and governments would struggle to maintain order. The intricate web of interconnectedness that defines modern civilization would unravel, leaving behind a world fragmented and chaotic. The concept of a limited nuclear war, often touted by military strategists, would prove to be a dangerous illusion. The use of even a small number of nuclear weapons would have catastrophic global consequences, triggering a chain reaction of retaliation and escalation that could quickly spiral out of control. The global climate would be thrown into disarray. The massive fires ignited by nuclear explosions would release billions of tons of soot and smoke into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and causing a sharp drop in global temperatures. This nuclear winter, as it is known, could last for years, disrupting agriculture, leading to widespread famine and plunging the planet into a prolonged period of darkness and cold. The very survival of humanity would be in doubt. The few remaining pockets of civilization would be left to rebuild from the ashes, facing a daunting future of environmental degradation, resource scarcity, and the ever-present threat of disease and radiation. The world, once vibrant and full of promise, would be reduced to a shadow of its former self. A time for action, averting the nuclear apocalypse. The urgency of the nuclear threat demands a response commensurate with the stakes, a response that is both immediate and sustained. The time for complacency, for empty rhetoric and half-hearted measures is long gone. We must act decisively and with purpose. The survival of humanity hinges on our collective ability to summon the political will, the moral courage, and the unwavering commitment to diplomacy needed to avert a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. This is a challenge we cannot afford to ignore. A world free from the threat of nuclear annihilation may seem like a distant utopia, but it is a goal worth striving for, a moral imperative that transcends national borders, political ideologies, and short-term interests. It is a vision of hope and survival. The path forward requires a multifaceted approach, a global effort to address the root causes of nuclear proliferation, including political tensions and regional conflict, to reduce the role of nuclear weapons in security doctrines, and to promote disarmament initiatives worldwide, to foster a climate of trust and cooperation among nations, building bridges instead of walls. Reinvigorating arms control efforts must be a top priority, ensuring that existing agreements are upheld and new ones are forged. The New START Treaty, while imperfect, provides a vital framework for limiting the strategic nuclear arsenals of the United States and Russia. It is a cornerstone of global security. Extending the treaty beyond its current expiration date of 2026 is essential, as is engaging in serious dialogue on further reductions in nuclear stockpiles. This is a critical step towards a safer world. The international community must also work to strengthen the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the cornerstone of the global non-proliferation regime. This treaty is fundamental to our collective security. This includes addressing the concerns of states that have not joined the treaty, such as India, Pakistan, and Israel, and bringing them into the fold and enforcing compliance from those who violate its provisions, such as North Korea. Only through collective action can we hope to avert the nuclear apocalypse. Call to consciousness, our shared responsibility. The task of preventing nuclear war is not the sole responsibility of governments and diplomats. It is a collective responsibility, a moral imperative that falls upon each and every one of us. We cannot afford to be bystanders in the face of such an existential threat. The stakes are too high. We must all raise our voices, demand action from our leaders, and work to build a more peaceful and just world. Education is paramount. We must educate ourselves and future generations about the horrors of nuclear war, the devastating consequences of even a limited nuclear exchange, and the urgent need for disarmament. The time to act is now. We must challenge the myths and misconceptions surrounding nuclear weapons, exposing them for what they are, instruments of terror that have no place in a civilized world. Citizen diplomacy can play a vital role in bridging divides and fostering understanding between nations. By engaging with people from different cultures and backgrounds, we can help to break down stereotypes, build relationships, and create a more peaceful and interconnected world. This is our shared mission. The arts, literature, and music have the power to transcend borders and languages, to touch hearts and minds in ways that political rhetoric often cannot. We must harness the power of the arts to raise awareness about the nuclear threat, to inspire hope, and to promote a vision of a world free from the fear of annihilation. Remember, the future is not something that happens to us. It is something we create together. Let us choose to create a future where the shadow of nuclear war no longer hangs over humanity. A future where peace, justice, and the well-being of all prevail. This is our shared responsibility. A world united against the nuclear threat. The path to a world free from the threat of nuclear war will be long and arduous, demanding unwavering commitment, strategic foresight, and a fundamental shift in global consciousness. Yet amidst the sobering realities of our time, there remains a glimmer of hope, for within each of us resides the capacity for empathy, for reason, and for a future where the shadow of annihilation no longer darkens our doorstep. The choice is ours to make. We can succumb to the siren song of division and despair, allowing fear and mistrust to guide our actions. Or we can choose the path of unity and collective action, recognizing that our shared humanity transcends the artificial boundaries that divide us. Let us choose wisely. Let us choose a future where dialogue replaces diatribe, where diplomacy trumps aggression, and where cooperation becomes the defining principle of international relations. Let us choose a future where the words nuclear war are relegated to the history books, a chilling reminder of a path not taken, a future averted through collective wisdom and unwavering resolve. The survival of civilization as we know it depends on the choices we make today.